The Zetherian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered 400 star systems and crushed every species that dared to resist them. Their warships were the size of mountains. Their armies numbered in the billions. When they spoke, entire civilizations trembled and obeyed. Supreme Commander Velthus stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and looked at the small blue planet on the main screen. Earth, home to a species called humans. A primitive world that had only recently discovered how to leave their own atmosphere. They were nothing. They were insects waiting to be stepped on. Send the ultimatum, Velthus commanded. His voice was cold and certain. He had done this hundreds of times before. The result was always the same: surrender or death. Most species chose surrender. Those who chose death received it quickly. The message was simple. The humans had 3 days to accept Zetherian rule. They would give up their weapons. They would provide workers for Zetherian mines. They would accept a governor appointed by the Emperor. If they refused, the Zetherian fleet would burn their cities and enslave the survivors. Velthus expected the humans to beg. He expected them to cry and plead for mercy. He expected them to offer anything, everything, just to survive another day. This was how it always happened. He was not prepared for what came next on Earth. The message arrived at the Pentagon at exactly 3 in the afternoon. General Kevin Moore was in a meeting when his aide rushed in with the news. An alien fleet had appeared at the edge of the solar system. They were demanding humanity's complete surrender. Moore was 62 years old. He had served in 3 wars. He had seen things that would break most men. But when he read the alien ultimatum, he did something that surprised everyone in the room. He started laughing. It was not a nervous laugh. It was not a scared laugh. It was the deep, genuine laugh of a man who had just heard the funniest joke of his life. Admiral Linda Patterson looked at him with concern. "Sir, are you all right?" Moore tried to answer, but he was laughing too hard. He handed her the tablet with the ultimatum. She read it. Then she started laughing too. Within 5 minutes, every senior officer in the room was laughing. They laughed until tears ran down their faces. They laughed until their stomachs hurt. They laughed like they had not laughed in years. Colonel Danny Hughes, the intelligence officer, was the first to recover. He wiped his eyes and took a deep breath. "So they really don't know, do they?" "They have no idea," Moore said, finally getting his laughter under control. "They looked at our civilian space program and thought that was all we had." "To be fair," Patterson said with a grin, "we did work very hard to make them think that." This was the secret that humanity had kept for nearly 60 years. When the first alien probes had been detected in the 1960s, the governments of Earth had made a decision. They would hide their true capabilities. They would let any watching alien see only their primitive rockets and simple satellites. Meanwhile, they would build something else entirely. The real human space program was hidden underground, in facilities that did not officially exist. Scientists from every nation worked together in secret, reverse engineering alien technology and creating weapons that the galaxy had never seen. They built defense platforms and hid them among the asteroids. They constructed warships and kept them on the dark side of the moon. They developed technologies that should have been impossible, and they waited. "How long until our defense grid is fully active?" Moore asked. "It has been active for 6 hours, sir," Hughes replied. "The moment we detected their fleet, everything came online. We have targeting solutions on every ship in their formation." Moore nodded. He walked to the window and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, an alien commander was waiting for humanity to surrender. That commander was about to have a very bad day. "Get me a communication channel to their flagship," Moore said. "I think it's time we introduced ourselves properly." On the Eternal Dominion, Velthus was growing impatient. The humans had not responded to his ultimatum. This was unusual. Most species replied within hours, desperate to negotiate any terms that might spare them total destruction. "Supreme Commander," his communications officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet. Emily, put it through." The screen flickered, and a human face appeared. It was an older male with gray hair and a calm expression. Behind him stood several other humans in military uniforms. Velthus noticed something strange immediately. None of them looked afraid. If anything, they looked amused. "I am General Kevin Moore of Earth's Unified Defense Command," the human said. "We have received your ultimatum, and you know what you must do," Velthus replied. "Surrender now, and your people will be treated with mercy. Resist, and you will be destroyed." "Yes, about that." Moore's lips curved into a small smile. "We have decided to decline your generous offer." Velthus blinked his 7 eyes in confusion. "Decline? You cannot decline. You have no choice." "Actually, we do have a choice, and we choose to fight." Moore leaned forward slightly. "But before we begin, I wanted to give you a chance to reconsider. You see, your intelligence about our species is not quite accurate." "We know everything about you," Velthus said dismissively. "You are primitive. You have basic chemical rockets and fragile space stations. You pose no threat to the Empire. Is that so?" Moore's smile grew wider. "Then perhaps you can explain why 3 of your scout ships, currently hiding in our asteroid belt, have been painted with targeting lasers for the past 6 hours." Velthus felt his heart skip a beat. He turned to his tactical officer, who was frantically checking the sensors. The officer's face went pale. "Supreme Commander, he is correct. Our scouts are reporting that they have been locked by unknown weapon systems. The signals are coming from at least 40 different locations throughout their solar system." "Impossible," Velthus whispered. "We detected nothing." "You detected exactly what we wanted you to detect," Moore said. "Here is the truth, Commander. We have been preparing for this moment for 60 years. We have weapons you cannot imagine and defenses you cannot penetrate. Your Empire has never faced anything like us." Moore paused, and his expression became serious. "We do not want this war. We are happy to live in peace, but if you force us to fight, we will not stop until your fleet is dust and your Empire is a memory. You have 72 hours to withdraw from our solar system. Use that time wisely." The transmission ended. Velthus stood in silence, staring at the blank screen. For the first time in his 300 years of military service, he felt something he had never felt before: fear. He looked at the small blue planet on his view screen. It looked so peaceful, so harmless, so small, but somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice was telling him that size did not matter, that this tiny world held something dangerous, something that had been waiting in the dark, watching, preparing, something that was no longer afraid to show itself. "Get me the Emperor," Velthus said quietly. "I need to report a complication." Emperor Meltos had ruled the Zetherian Empire for 600 years. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. He had ordered the destruction of worlds that displeased him. He had never once doubted that his empire was the greatest power in the galaxy. When Supreme Commander Velthos reported the situation with the humans, Maltos listened in silence. When the report was finished, he asked a single question. "Are you telling me that a primitive species from a single planet has somehow threatened the most powerful fleet in existence?" Velthus shifted uncomfortably. "Divine Majesty, I believe we have underestimated them. Their technology is far more advanced than our initial survey suggested." "Then destroy them," Maltos said simply. "You have 800 warships. They have 1 planet. This is not complicated. With respect, Divine Majesty, they have demonstrated capabilities that concern me. They detected our hidden scout ships. They have weapons platforms we did not know existed." And their general spoke with a confidence that suggested he was not bluffing. "All primitive species bluff," Maltos said dismissively. "It is their only weapon against superior force. You will proceed with the attack. Crush them quickly and bring me their leaders in chains. I wish to understand how they developed this technology." "As you command, Divine Majesty." The transmission ended. Velthus turned to his officers with a heavy feeling in his primary stomach. He had served the Emperor faithfully for 3 centuries. He had never questioned an order. But something about this situation felt wrong. "Prepare the fleet for attack," he said. "We move on the human planet in 24 hours." On Earth, General Moore was conducting his own preparations. The underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains was alive with activity. Officers from every nation worked side by side, coordinating the defense of their entire species. "Status report," Moore said, as he entered the main operations room. Colonel Hughes stood at the central display. "All defensive systems are at full readiness, sir. The orbital platforms are tracking every ship in the alien fleet. Our interceptor squadrons on Mars have launched and will be in position within 12 hours. Luna Base reports all railgun batteries are charged." "What about our offensive capabilities?" A woman in civilian clothes stepped forward. Her name was Katie Sullivan, and she was the director of the Advanced Research Division. Very few people knew what her division actually did. Even fewer knew about the things they had created. "General," she said, "we have 3 options for offensive action. First, we can deploy our kinetic kill vehicles. They accelerate to 30% of light speed and carry enough energy to destroy any ship in their fleet with a single hit. And the second option? The Alcubierre strike packages. We can have warheads in the Zetharian home system within 6 hours. They would never see them coming." Moore nodded slowly. "And the third?" Katie hesitated. "Project Omega, the biological option. It would end the Zetharian species permanently. Every world, every colony, every ship. Complete extinction within 90 days. The room went quiet. Everyone knew about Project Omega, but no one ever spoke about it openly. It was the darkest creation of human science, designed as a weapon of absolute last resort. "That one stays in the vault," Moore said firmly. "We are not going to commit genocide unless they give us no other choice." "Understood, sir." Admiral Patterson approached with a tablet in her hand. "Kevin, we have been analyzing their fleet composition. I think you will find this interesting."
Oh.
Moore took the tablet and studied the data. The Zetharian ships were large and heavily armed, but their technology was surprisingly straightforward. Their shields were electromagnetic. Their weapons were plasma-based. Their propulsion systems were similar to what human scientists had developed 30 years ago. "They are not as advanced as we expected," Moore said. "No, they are not. Our analysts believe that the Zetharian Empire has not faced a serious military challenge in over 1,000 years. They have become comfortable. They have stopped innovating. They conquer weak species and use their technology without improving it, and we have been innovating constantly. Because we have been fighting each other for our entire existence," Patterson said with a grim smile. "Every war pushed us to develop new weapons, new defenses, new strategies. We never had the luxury of becoming comfortable." Moore set down the tablet. "So we are actually more advanced than them." "In many areas, yes. Our materials science is superior. Our computer systems are faster. Our weapons are more precise. The only advantage they have is numbers: 800 ships against 1. Planet against 1 planet with 60 years of preparation and the combined military experience of every nation on Earth." Moore allowed himself a small smile. "I almost feel sorry for them." In orbit above Earth, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake was running final checks on her interceptor. She was stationed on Platform 7, one of the hidden defense stations that floated among the debris of the asteroid belt. For 15 years, she had waited for this moment. "All systems green," she reported. "Weapons online. Targeting computers synchronized with the main network." Her wingman, Lieutenant Pete Crawford, appeared on her screen. "You believe this is really happening, Blake? After all these years of training and waiting?" "Honestly, part of me thought this day would never come. Part of me hoped it would not." "Scared?" "No." Blake checked her weapon status one more time. "I have been preparing for this my entire career. Every simulation, every drill, every sleepless night studying alien tactics. This is what I was born to do. The aliens have no idea what they are walking into, do they?" Blake smiled. "Not a clue. They think they are attacking a primitive world. They do not understand what it means to threaten humanity." She looked out her cockpit window at the distant stars. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was preparing to attack her home. They thought they would find an easy victory. They thought humans would break and run at the first sign of real firepower. They were about to learn the truth. Humans did not break. Humans did not run. Humans dug in and fought until their enemies were destroyed or they themselves were dead. It was not bravery in the traditional sense. It was something deeper, something coded into the very DNA of the species. Humans were survivors. They had survived ice ages and plagues. They had survived world wars and nuclear standoffs. They had survived everything the universe had thrown at them for 200,000 years. One alien fleet was not going to change that. Platform 7 to command, Blake reported. We are ready. In the command center, Moore received the report, along with dozens of others. Every platform, every ship, every soldier was reporting ready. The combined military might of Earth was prepared to fight. Moore took a deep breath. He thought about his grandchildren, sleeping peacefully in their beds, unaware of the danger in the sky above them. He thought about all the generations who had worked in secret to build these defenses. He thought about all the sacrifices that had been made to reach this moment. This is General Moore to all units, he said, his voice calm and steady. The enemy approaches. They believe we are weak. They believe we are afraid. They believe they can crush us without effort. He paused, showed him how wrong they are. Across the solar system, weapons powered up, targeting systems locked on. Fingers hovered over firing controls. The war for Earth is about to begin. The Zetharian fleet moved toward Earth like a swarm of angry insects. 800 warships in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. Supreme Commander Velthus watched from the bridge of the Eternal Dominion as the small blue planet grew larger on his screen. All ships report, ready for attack, his tactical officer announced. We will be in weapons range within 2 hours. Velthus nodded, but his eyes kept returning to the sensor display. Something was wrong. The human planet showed no signs of panic. There were no evacuation ships fleeing the system. There were no desperate transmissions begging for mercy. The planet sat there in silence, waiting. Have our scouts detected any defensive activity? He asked. Negative, Supreme Commander. We see only their civilian satellites and space station. No military assets. That is what concerns me. Before he could say more, an alarm blared across the bridge. One of the forward scout ships had vanished from the sensor grid. Then another. Then a third. What is happening? Velthos demanded. Unknown, Supreme Commander. The scouts just disappeared. No weapons fire detected. No warning. Velthos felt the cold grip of fear tighten around his hearts. 3 ships, gone in seconds, and they had seen nothing. No attack. No missiles. Nothing. Then the first kinetic round struck. It came out of the darkness at 30% of the speed of light. A tungsten rod no larger than a ground vehicle, moving so fast that it was invisible to Zetharian sensors. It hit the destroyer Vengeful Pride dead center, and the ship simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion. There was no debris. The energy of the impact vaporized the entire vessel in a fraction of a second. What was that? Velthus screamed. We do not know. Our sensors show nothing. Another ship died. Then another. Then 5 more, in rapid succession. The Zetharian fleet fell into chaos. Ships broke formation, trying to evade an enemy they could not see. Captains screamed for information, but there was no information to give. They were dying, and they did not know how or why. On Earth, General Moore watched the battle unfold on the main display. Each red dot that vanished represented a Zetharian warship. Each kill brought humanity one step closer to survival. Kinetic bombardment is effective, Colonel Hughes reported. Enemy formation is breaking apart. They are trying to scatter. Switch to secondary weapons, Moore ordered. Let them see what they are facing. In the asteroid belt, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake received the order. She smiled grimly and armed her missiles. These were not ordinary missiles. They were smart weapons, equipped with artificial intelligence and enough explosive power to crack a moon. Platform 7. Engaging, she announced. She fired. Across the solar system, hundreds of other pilots did the same. The void of space lit up with engine trails, as human. Missiles streaked toward the enemy fleet. The Zetharians finally had something to shoot at. Their plasma cannons fired, trying to intercept the incoming weapons. Some missiles died. Others dodged the fire with impossible agility, their onboard computers calculating evasion patterns faster than any living pilot could react. The missiles struck. Ship after ship erupted in balls of fire. The great Zetherian warships, each one crewed by thousands, burned like candles in the darkness. Velt could not believe what he was seeing. In less than 30 minutes, he had lost 100 ships. 100 ships destroyed by a species that was supposed to be primitive, a species that was supposed to surrender at the first show of force. "We must retreat," his second-in-command urged. "This is not a battle. This is a massacre. The Emperor ordered us to attack. We cannot retreat. If we stay here, we will all die." As if to emphasize his point, another ship exploded nearby. The shockwave shook the Eternal Dominion. Velthos had to grab his command chair to stay standing. He looked at the tactical display. His fleet was scattered. His ships were dying, and the humans had not even deployed their main forces yet. This was just their automated defenses. Just their machines. What would happen when the human warriors themselves joined the fight? "All ships fall back to the outer system," Velthos ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "We need to regroup and reassess." The retreat was not orderly. Ships fled in all directions, each one trying to escape the invisible death that struck from nowhere. More vessels died during the withdrawal than had been lost in the initial attack. Humans showed no mercy. They hunted the fleeing ships with cold efficiency, picking them off one by one. By the time the survivors reached the outer edge of the solar system, the Zetherian fleet had been cut in half. 400 ships destroyed in less than 3 hours. It was the worst defeat in the history of the Empire. On Earth, the mood was cautiously optimistic. Morse studied the battle reports with a careful eye. "They are regrouping near the gas giants," Hughes reported. "Looks like about 400 ships remaining. Casualties on our side?" "None, sir. We lost some missiles and a few drones, but no personnel. Our manned stations never had to engage directly." Moore nodded slowly. "This is not over. They still have enough firepower to cause serious damage if they push through. Do you think they will try again? I do not know. It depends on how stubborn their commander is." Moore walked to the window and looked up at the sky. "Send them a message. Give them one more chance to withdraw." The message was simple: surrender or leave. The humans had no desire to continue the killing. They had made their point. Now it was time for the Zetherians to decide if their pride was worth their lives. Velthos received the message on a bridge filled with smoke and fear. Around him, officers worked frantically to repair damaged systems and tend to wounded crew. The mighty Eternal Dominion had taken several hits during the retreat, and sections of the ship were open to space. Supreme Commander, his communications officer, said, "The humans are offering terms. Full withdrawal with no further hostilities if we leave now." Velthos looked at the message. Part of him wanted to accept. Part of him wanted to run and never look back. But he was a warrior of the Empire. He had sworn an oath to the Emperor. And the Emperor had ordered him to conquer this world. "We cannot retreat," he said finally. "The Emperor would have us executed. We'll all be dead anyway if we attack again. Then we die with honor." Velthos straightened his posture and tried to project confidence he did not feel. "Send a message to the Emperor. Tell him what has happened. Request reinforcements. Reinforcements will take months to arrive. Then we wait. We hold position and wait." He looked at the blue planet on his screen. "And we learn everything we can about these humans. If we must fight them again, I want to know exactly what we are facing." In the distance, Earth continued to spin peacefully on its axis. Its defenders stood ready, watching and waiting. The first battle was over. But the war had just begun. And somewhere in the depths of the solar system, human engineers were already preparing the next surprise. Because if there was one thing humanity had learned from its long and bloody history, it was this: never give an enemy time to recover. The next strike would not be defensive. The next strike would bring the war to the Zetherian's doorstep, and that would change everything. The Zetherian homeworld was called Zether Prime, and it was beautiful. Great cities of crystal and metal stretched across its surface. Flying vehicles filled the skies like flocks of silver birds. Billions of Zetharians lived their lives in peace and comfort, secure in the knowledge that their mighty empire would protect them from all threats. Emperor Maltos stood in his palace, looking out at his capital city. He had received the reports from Supreme Commander Velthos. He had seen the numbers. 400 ships destroyed. Half the invasion fleet gone in a matter of hours. For the first time in his 600 years of life, Maltos felt something he did not recognize. It took him several moments to identify the emotion. It was doubt. "Divine Majesty," his advisor said quietly, "what are your orders?" "I am thinking humans have requested a formal negotiation. They say they will accept peaceful coexistence if we withdraw all forces from their system." Peaceful coexistence. Maltos tasted the words like something bitter. The Empire does not coexist. We conquer or we destroy. That is our way. Our way has cost us 400 warships in a single day. Maltos turned sharply. No one spoke to him like that. No one questioned the imperial way. But when he looked at his advisor's face, he saw not defiance, but fear. Everyone was afraid now. Before Maltos could respond, an alarm began to sound throughout the palace. Security officers rushed into the room, weapons drawn. "Divine Majesty, an unidentified object has entered the atmosphere." Impossible. Nothing can penetrate our defense grid. It appears to have arrived through some form of faster-than-light travel. It materialized inside our defensive perimeter. Maltos felt his heart freeze. The humans had faster-than-light capability. How was that possible? His scientists had assured him that no species could develop such technology without centuries of research. The humans had only been in space for less than 100 years. He ran to the window and looked up. A small metallic object was descending toward the palace, leaving a trail of fire in the sky. Defense batteries fired at it, but the object was too small and moving too fast. It slipped through the barrage and landed gently in the palace gardens. "Do not touch it," Maltos ordered. It could be a bomb. Guards surrounded the object, weapons pointed at its smooth metal surface. For several long moments, nothing happened. Then a seam appeared in the metal, and light spilled out. A human appeared. Not a real human, but a projection made of blue light. It was the same human that Velthos had spoken to. "General Kevin Moore." "Emperor Maltos," the projection said. "I apologize for the uninvited visit. I thought it was important that we speak directly." Maltos stared at the ghost in his garden. He tried to find words, but none came. "As you can see," Moore continued, "we are capable of reaching your home world. This probe traveled 40 light years in approximately 6 hours. We could have sent a warhead instead. We chose to send a message." "What message?" Maltos finally managed to ask. "That this war does not need to continue. Your fleet attacked our home. We defended ourselves. Now you have a choice. You can accept that humanity is not a species to be conquered, and we can find a way to coexist in peace. Or you can continue the war and learn exactly how far we are willing to go to protect ourselves. You threaten me? In my own palace. I am giving you information so you can make an informed decision." The projection's expression was calm and patient. "Your empire has conquered 400 worlds because none of them could resist you. You have never faced an enemy that fights back. We fight back. It is what we do. It is all we have ever done." Maltos thought about his history lessons. The Zetharian Empire had existed for 10,000 years. In all that time, they had never lost a war. They had never retreated from a conquest. They had never shown weakness. If he surrendered now, what would happen? The tributary species would see that the Empire could be defied. They might rebel. Other powers might sense weakness and attack. The entire structure of Zetharian dominance could collapse. "I cannot withdraw," Maltos said. "It would destroy everything my ancestors built." "Your ancestors built an empire based on fear," Moore replied. "Fear is not a stable foundation. Eventually, someone always pushes back. And you are pushing back. We are defending our home. There is a difference." The projection paused. "But let me be clear about what happens if you continue this war. Right now, my government is debating whether to deploy our strategic weapons against your home world. Some of my colleagues want to end this conflict quickly by destroying Zethar Prime. Others argue for a more measured approach. Maltos felt a chill run through his body. You would commit genocide. We have the capability. We have weapons that could end your entire species in a matter of months. I have personally argued against using them because I believe we are better than that. But if you continue to threaten us, I may not be able to stop my colleagues from making that decision. The projection stepped closer, and even though it was just light, Maltos found himself stepping back. This is not a negotiation, Moore said. This is a warning. You started this war. You can end it. Withdraw your fleet. Accept that Earth is not yours to take. And this all stops. Continue to push, and you will learn why every predator on our planet learned to fear us. The projection flickered and vanished. The probe sat silent in the garden, a small metal egg that had crossed the impossible distance between stars. Maltos stood alone in the sudden quiet. His guards looked at him, waiting for orders. His advisors waited for a decision that would shape the future of the Empire. He thought about his people. Billions of Zetharians living their peaceful lives. They did not know about the war. They did not know that an alien species had just reached through their defenses as easily as reaching through an open window. If he continued the war and the humans made good on their threat, all those lives would end. His cities would burn. His civilization would become ash and memory. But if he withdrew, his empire would never be the same. Other species would see that the Zetharians could be beaten. The illusion of invincibility would shatter. He had to choose between his pride and his people. For a very long time, he stared at the probe in his garden. Then he turned to his advisor. Contact Supreme Commander Velthus. Tell him to withdraw all forces from the human system. Divine Majesty. The humans have proven their point. They are not worth the cost of conquest. He paused, trying to find words that would not sound like surrender. We will. Observe them for now. Learn from them. Perhaps in the future, when we understand them better, we can try again. It was not surrender. It was not defeat. It was a tactical withdrawal, a strategic decision. That was what Maltos told himself as his advisors sent the orders. But deep down, in the place where emperors were not allowed to feel fear, Maltos knew the truth. Humanity had one, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Zetharian fleet withdrew from Earth's solar system 3 days after the probe landed in the Emperor's garden. No formal surrender was signed. No treaty was negotiated. The great warships simply turned around and flew back the way they had come, leaving behind only the wreckage of their destroyed comrades. On Earth, the reaction was complicated. Some people celebrated in the streets, waving flags and singing songs of victory. Others demanded that humanity pursue the retreating fleet and destroy it completely. And some simply went back to their daily lives. Barely aware that their species had just won an interstellar war, General Kevin Moore stood in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching the last Zetharian ship disappear from the sensor grid. Around him, officers cheered and embraced. Someone had brought champagne and glasses were being passed around. Moore did not celebrate. He felt only a quiet sense of relief, mixed with a heavy weight of responsibility. They will be back, he said quietly. Admiral Linda Patterson moved to stand beside him. You think so? Not the Zetharians, maybe. But others. We have announced ourselves to the galaxy. We have shown that we can fight, that we have technology that rivals or exceeds the established powers. That will attract attention. Some good, some bad. Exactly. Or accepted a glass of champagne but did not drink it. The question now is what we do next. Do we hide again? Hope no one else comes looking? Or do we step out into the galaxy and take our place among the stars? Patterson considered the question. Hiding did not work. They found us anyway. True, and now they know we are worth finding. Colonel Danny Hughes approached with a tablet in his hand. Sir, we are already receiving signals from other species. It seems the Zetharian tributary network has been watching the battle. Several of them want to make contact. What kind of contact? Trade agreements, defensive alliances, technology exchanges, Hughes scrolled through the messages. It seems we made quite an impression. Some of these species have been under Zetharian control for thousands of years. They are very interested in talking to the first people who ever made the Empire retreat. Moore finally took a sip of his champagne. It was cold and sharp, and it reminded him of celebrations after other wars. Wars that seemed so small now compared to what humanity had just accomplished. Set up a diplomatic team, he said. We will need people who understand alien cultures, alien psychology, alien politics. This is a new world we are entering. A new galaxy, Patterson corrected. Yes, a new galaxy. In orbit above Earth. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake was returning to Platform 7. Her interceptor had not fired a single shot during the battle. The automated defenses had done all the work. But she had watched from her cockpit as the Zetharian fleet burned. And she had felt something she had never expected to feel. Pity the aliens had come to conquer, and they had found something they did not expect. They had met humanity, and humanity had shown them what happened to those who threatened their home. It was necessary. It was justified. But it was also sad. Thinking deep thoughts, Blake. Lieutenant Pete Crawford asked over the radio, just wondering what comes next. Next we go home. We see our families. We try to explain why we have been living on a secret space station for the past 10 years. Blake laughed. That is going to be an interesting conversation. The whole world is going to have interesting conversations. Nothing is ever going to be the same, is it? No, Blake agreed. I do not think it is. Back on Earth, the sun was rising over Washington, D.C. General Moore had flown back to the Pentagon to begin the work of transitioning humanity from a hidden, defensive posture to an active presence in galactic affairs. It was the biggest change in human history, and it was happening all at once. He stood on the roof of the Pentagon, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Katie Sullivan, the director of advanced research, joined him. We did it, she said. Survived. That is not the same as doing it. Close enough for one day. She handed him a folder. Here are the preliminary plans for the expansion program. Mars colony acceleration. Extrasolar exploration. First contact protocols for the species that have reached out. Wait more. Took the folder and flipped through it. Plans for a future that no one had imagined possible just a week ago. Plans for humanity to take its first steps into a galaxy that was suddenly much bigger and much more complicated than anyone had realized. Do you think we are ready for this? He asked. No, Katie admitted. But we were not ready for the Zetharians either. We figured it out. That is the human way, I suppose. Figure it out as we go. It has worked so far. Moore closed the folder and tucked it under his arm. He had 100 meetings scheduled, 1,000 decisions to make, 1,000,000 details to oversee. But for this one moment, he allowed himself to simply stand and watch the sunrise. Humanity had faced its first test from the stars and had passed. Not through luck, not through mercy, but through 60 years of preparation and a stubbornness that had been bred into the species over millennia of survival. Dinosaurs had ruled Earth for 165 million years before an asteroid ended their reign. Humans had emerged from the chaos that followed, small and weak and seemingly insignificant. But they had something the dinosaurs never had. They had the ability to look at the sky and say, "That will never happen to us." And then they had made it true. The Zetharians made a mistake, Moore said quietly. What mistake? They thought we were just another primitive species waiting to be conquered. They did not understand that our entire history has been preparation for this moment. Every war, every plague, every natural disaster made us stronger, made us more determined, made us more dangerous. He turned to look at Katie. They declared war on a species that has been at war with itself for 200,000 years. They threatened a planet where every single creature from the smallest insect to the largest whale has been competing for survival since the first life appeared in the oceans. They tried to intimidate the descendants of people who hunted mammoths with pointed sticks and built civilizations from mud and stone. A small smile crossed his face. They thought our generals would cower and surrender. Instead, we giggled. because we knew something they did not. We knew that compared to what we have already survived, what we have already overcome, what we have already done to each other. One alien empire was not very frightening at all, or looked back at the sunrise, at the world that humanity had almost lost and had fought to keep. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the oldest. We are not the most advanced, but we are the most stubborn, the most adaptable, the most relentless. And now the galaxy knows it. He straightened his uniform and turned toward the door. Come on. We have a lot of work to do. The universe is waiting, and humanity is finally ready to answer. Behind him, the sun continued to rise over a world that would never be the same. A world that had looked into the darkness of space, seen the monsters waiting there, and had decided not to be afraid. A world that was ready to take its place among the stars, not as servants, not as subjects, not as victims, but as equals. And perhaps in time, as leaders? The first chapter of humanity's galactic story was complete. The next chapter was just beginning, and somewhere in the depths of space, other civilizations watched and wondered what these strange, stubborn, giggling humans would do next. They would find out soon enough.